the price of silence, and the bloodline we choose. When the heavy oak door of courtroom 4B slammed shut, the sound echoed down the marble hallway like a gunshot. For 6 years, I believed I was just doing what any decent human being would do. I was taking care of my dead sister's kids. It all started on a rainy Tuesday night in Chicago. I was 27, 2 months away from opening my own catering business, when my phone buzzed at 3 in the morning. It was the county hospital. My elder sister, Clara, had been rushed into emergency surgery after a severe car crash. Her husband, Julian, my late brother-in-law, had survived with barely a scratch. Clara, however, didn't make it. When I arrived at the hospital, Julian was sitting in the corner of the family waiting room, staring blankly at the linoleum floor. He was completely unresponsive, clutching Clara's gold wedding band like a lifeline. In the pediatric unit down the hall, 3 small children were huddled on a single vinyl couch. There was Leo, who was 7, Maya, who was 5, and baby Sam, barely 18 months old, fast asleep in a plastic hospital bassinet. Julian looked up at me, his eyes hollow, and said words that would burn into my brain forever. "I can't do this, Marcus. Every time I look at them, I just see her. I need a few weeks to clear my head." 10 minutes later, he walked out to get coffee. He never came back. By sunrise, Julian's cell phone was completely disconnected. When the state social worker approached me with a stack of temporary foster forms, the choice was devastatingly simple. Either I signed those papers, or 3 traumatized children were going to be split up into separate state group homes by nightfall. So I signed. I gave up the lease on my commercial kitchen. I poured every single penny of my business savings, over $22,000, into buying a 3-bedroom fixer-upper on the south side. The first year was pure, unadulterated survival. I took a night shift job managing an auto parts warehouse, spending my days wiping noses, packing school lunches, and making sure Sam took his asthma treatments. When night fell, I'd hand the kids off to a trusted elderly neighbor, drive to the warehouse, and haul heavy crates until dawn. My girlfriend of 4 years couldn't handle the instant family life. She packed her bags after 4 months, telling me I was setting my own life on fire for a man who didn't care enough to stay. She was right about Julian, but she was wrong about the kids. They weren't just my niece and nephews anymore. They were my world. Meanwhile, Julian was living a completely different reality. Every 6 months, a postcard would arrive from somewhere exotic. Sedona, Costa Rica, Bali. He'd drop sporadic, lavish gifts, an expensive mountain bike for Leo, a designer coat for Maya, staying just long enough to play the cool, jet-setting uncle before disappearing into the night. What he never mentioned, what I didn't find out until much later, was that Clara's employer had paid out a $300,000 accidental death policy. Julian had pocketed every single dime, while I was skipping meals to pay for Maya's orthopedic leg braces. By year 5, we had built a real life. Leo was a straight-A student in middle school. Maya had made the regional youth choir, and little Sam was calling me Dad whenever he woke up from a nightmare. Julian was a ghost who popped up on social media every now and then, until he posted a photo that changed everything. He had met a woman named Evelyn, a wealthy, high-society interior designer from suburban Connecticut. Suddenly, Julian's social media feed was full of picture-perfect family aesthetics. Then came the announcement. Evelyn was pregnant. A week later, Julian started texting me, asking detailed questions about the kids' report cards, their medical records, their weekly schedules. My instinct screamed that something sinister was brewing, but nothing could have prepared me for what happened at Leo's Little League game 3 months later. I was standing near the bleachers, holding a warm thermos of coffee, watching Leo warm up on pitcher's mound. Suddenly, a sleek black SUV pulled up to the curb. Julian stepped out, dressed in a bespoke gray suit, looking like he'd walked off the cover of a magazine. Beside him was Evelyn, wearing dark sunglasses. Behind them was a man carrying a leather briefcase. Before I could even process what was happening, the man in the suit handed me a thick manila envelope. It was a court summons. Julian was suing me for full physical custody, along with $250,000 in damages for parental alienation and emotional distress. Evelyn held up her phone, recording my entire reaction, while Julian raised his voice so the other Little League parents could hear. "You've kept my children from me long enough, Marcus," he shouted, his voice cracking with rehearsed emotion. "You took advantage of my grief to steal my family." Leo froze on the mound, dropping his glove, his face pale with horror. The truth was far darker than just a father wanting his kids back. Evelyn's high-risk pregnancy required specialized, outrageously expensive treatments. Julian's business ventures had failed, and his $300,000 insurance money was completely gone. More importantly, Clara's wealthy godparents had set up an irrevocable educational trust fund for the 3 kids, totaling nearly $500,000. The catch: the funds could only be managed by the legal primary custodian. Julian wasn't coming back because he loved his children. He was coming back because he was broke, and 3 kids he had abandoned were his last financial lifeline. The court battle was a nightmare. Julian hired a high-priced family law firm that specialized in aggressive tactics. They painted me as an unstable, single blue-collar worker who had manipulated 3 grieving children into hating their biological father. They took text messages out of context, making my desperate pleas for financial help sound like bitter, hostile demands. They even produced a child psychologist, paid $250 an hour, who claimed after a single 30-minute interview that the children suffered from severe, caregiver-induced trauma. I countered with everything I had. 6 years of pediatrician receipts, report cards signed by my hand, text logs showing Julian's endless rejections. Even Julian's own mother took the stand, weeping as she told the judge how her son had bragged about leaving the kids with me so he could find himself in South America. When the judge interviewed the kids in chambers, Leo spoke with a maturity far beyond his 13 years. "He isn't my dad," Leo told the judge. "He's just a man who brings expensive toys when he wants to feel good about himself." It seemed like the truth was finally winning. The judge looked disgusted by Julian's antics, ready to throw the case out. Then, during the final morning of testimony, the courtroom doors flew open. A court clerk rushed up to the bench, handing the judge a sealed manila file. The judge's face went dead serious. She called an immediate emergency recess. The new filing came from Clara's former personal attorney. It contained a sworn affidavit, along with a sealed letter Clara had drafted 3 weeks before her fatal car accident. When the court reconvened, the judge read the contents of that letter aloud into the official record. Clara had discovered that Julian had quietly taken out a secondary life insurance policy on her, doubling the payout if her death occurred under accidental circumstances. She wrote that she felt unsafe, that Julian had been pressuring her to drive late at night on icy roads during heavy winter storms. The room went dead silent. Julian's face drained of all color. Beside him, Evelyn went completely rigid. The judge immediately halted all custody proceedings, ordering an emergency criminal investigation into Clara's fatal crash, while issuing a permanent protection order against Julian. 2 days later, Evelyn filed for divorce, handed over a trove of Julian's financial records to the district attorney, and vanished. Today, 6 years after that rainy night in the hospital, the dust has finally settled. Julian is serving a long prison sentence for insurance fraud and grand larceny. We don't live in fear anymore. Leo is preparing for his high school graduation. Maya is heading to a performing arts camp, and little Sam is sitting at the kitchen table, drawing a picture of our family. In his drawing, there are 4 people standing side by side, holding hands under a bright yellow sun. I didn't give birth to these children. I didn't share their surname, but when people ask me how many kids I have, I don't hesitate for a single second. I have 3, because family isn't about blood or legal papers, or who shares your last name. Family is about who stays when everyone else walks away.